speak to you in an interactive mode. My friend, the Ambassador of Brazil to India, Kenneth Nobrega, the MD and CEO of Maruti Suzuki India, Hisashi Takeuchi-san, President of the Indian Sugar and Bioenergy Manufacturers Association, ISMA, Gautam Goyalji, the ED of SIAM, Prashant Banerjee, the head of Unica, Ivandro Gusi, friends, ladies and gentlemen. In reflecting on where we are today, I sometimes wonder whether many of us, certainly all of us don't, and I can be very confident of that. I even wonder whether, or rather how many of us truly comprehend the nature and scale of the revolutionary change that is taking place today. Let me share first a layman's perspective, and then I will, based on my 3.5 years association with the Petroleum and Natural Gas Ministry, try and fill in some technical content. First, anyone who tries to access a conference venue like Bharat Mobility, which is taking place simultaneously in Bharat Mandapam, Yashobhumi, and another third venue, and sees the immense amount of economic activity. Wait, teacher. Sit down or move. We are consuming, thanks to this mobility activity, we are consuming in India 5.4 million barrels of crude, which only partly explains the product of refineries which goes into vehicles. We have compressed biogas, we have natural gas, CNG, we have electric vehicles. It's mind-boggling the kind of consumption that is taking place. But I think what people do not understand fully is, even with that rising consumption, there's 67 million people who go to the petrol bunks every day in India are now getting a base fuel mixed with biofuel, ethanol made from different feeds, which even as the overall consumption goes up, the percentage of biofuel mixed is also going up. We have come from 1.5% in 2014 to 10% in 22 November. We did it by May. We were supposed to do 20% blending of the base fuel by 2030. Then we revised the target and we said we'll do it by the ethanol blending year 2025, which means October. And actually we'll probably do it by next month. Now, how is this possible? My friends who spoke before me, Mr. Banerjee, Mr. Goyal, my friend the Japanese ambassador, all of them talked about visionary government policies. Well, since I'm associated at least for the last 3.5 years with visionary government policies in this sector, I can agree with you. But visionary government policies by themselves do not and cannot produce the results you are seeking. Visionary government policies succeed when the other stakeholders in the system contribute to the achievement of the objective with total determination. And here I want to thank, without any hesitation, our friends whom Mr. Banerjee represents today, SIAM, the Society of Indian Automobile Manufacturers. I want to thank ISMA. I want to thank all those who are involved in different streams of the feed that we are using. If you just follow the news as a layman, you'll see the revolutionary changes which are taking place. Our production in those agricultural crops is good. We are opening up exports. We are making some of that raw material available for the ethanol program. And today, after a lot of hiccups and roadblocks which we had to navigate, I can say that we are not only confident of achieving 20% in a very short period of time, but we are, like our friends in Brazil and elsewhere, beginning to look at what the journey beyond 20% is going to be like. For me, it is a great honor to be able to address such an esteemed gathering at the third edition of the International Symposium for Thriving Eco-Energy in Mobility, ISTEM, which is a key initiative under Bharat Mobility 2025. I'm sanguine this platform represents a crucial step in shaping a sustainable, eco-friendly future in mobility, and I am very happy to be part of this initiative. This year's theme, Decarbonization Roadmap Towards a Carbon Neutral Future, resonates with the urgent global imperative for sustainability. It reflects our shared responsibility to reimagine mobility systems that align with environmental stewardship while promoting economic growth and technological advancement. There are very important events taking place in the world. We are absolutely conscious of the fact that even as we do well domestically, different countries, there is a global reality, and that global reality will determine what final paths that we tread. As far as India is concerned, one thing that we can say with confidence is that our journey to become the fifth largest economy, and if figures that are in the public domain are to be believed, we will be the fourth largest economy very soon. And thereafter, to move up the economic activity ladder, we will continue to require energy. And we will require all forms of energy. I am very confident that today, the automotive sector, which is currently valued at US dollars 261 billion, has been a crucial driver of this growth in India, contributing approximately, I think, 7.1% of India's national GDP. This industry has also generated around 45 million jobs and has transformed mobility and connectivity across the country. But when we are talking about mobility, we need to also ensure that the economic activity, whether on the roads or in other forms of mobility, also transforms to the sustainable and green path that we are all committed to. The transportation sector accounts for, I think these figures, I have nearly 25% of global greenhouse gas emissions. This is a global figure. As urbanization accelerates, this challenge is further aggravated by increasing energy demands and the need for effective mobility solutions. I had the privilege for 7 years to be the Minister for Housing and Urban Affairs, even as I held dual charge of the Ministry of Petroleum and Natural Gas. And I can tell you some revolutionary steps have been taken there. We have almost set the template for our construction industry following those green norms. The Honorable Prime Minister had a year-long challenge in which he invited the construction industry from all over the world to come and show their cutting edge technologies. Then we had a competition, and then 6 or 7 projects were selected for building 1,000 homes in 1 year using the latest green technologies. This is just one example. Our metro system, which is now, I think, the 3rd largest in the world, is a perfect example of how mobility can be used both in order to provide efficiency and also sustainability. We've had excellent collaboration from our friends in Japan on that. On the ethanol program, Brazil is in many ways the source of inspiration for our ethanol program. I had the privilege of serving there, and when I was in Sao Paulo in 2006, the president of UNICA mentioned to me that if India joins Brazil and the United States in biofuel blending, biofuels will take off because it's a large country with large consumption and hopefully large production. Today I can say with confidence that India has joined that club. And we have also, during our presidency of the G20, initiated the Global Biofuels Alliance. And yesterday when I was talking to my friend, Mr. Evandro Gussi, we were looking at further areas of collaboration under the Biofuels Alliance in order to make not only biofuels traded commodities, some trade takes place. We also talked about sustainable aviation fuel. We talked about other areas. My friend, the Brazilian ambassador, talked about the reforms taking place in Brazil, which I'm very impressed, both on the tax front, then biodiesel mixing. And I think these are all areas in which India also has a deep interest. And we will be, in fact, exchanging technical know-how to see how we can further this collaboration. A point that I never tire of making is that as our economy grows, our energy requirements are also set to rise. Therefore, it is absolutely essential that we reduce our dependence on fossil fuels. Over the past decade, the ethanol blending program has saved approximately US dollars 14.5 billion in foreign exchange and reduced CO2 emissions by 57.8 million metric tons. Policies such as the National Biofuel Policy 2018 and the Long-Term Ethanol Procurement Policy of 2019 have yielded very significant results. The target of 10% blending, as I was telling you, which was due to be met by November 2022, was met 5 months in advance. It was met by May of 2022. And as I mentioned, the target of 20% blending by 2030 has moved forward significantly. But I am not merely looking at statistics. What gives me even more satisfaction is that we have been able to get in place an ecosystem where targets appear easily achievable because the ecosystem, the stakeholders are in place. And therefore, I'm very confident that the discussions we have started on what would we do beyond 20%. Should we move beyond 20%? That's also a question. And if we move beyond 20%, what kind of agricultural linkages, backward linkages, use of biomass, and we are moving up the technology ladder. Our 2G ethanol, our 3G, we have 2G, we have from agricultural waste, also from bamboo, 3G from industrial gases, but we are also beginning to look at going further down that technological lane. I believe that our current distillation capacity, which is about 1,683 crore liters, and is projected to cross 1,700 crore liters, which will leave us ample opportunity to blend beyond 20% if we choose to do so. And herein comes a very interesting interplay between policy and the market. So far, I think we've got it right. We got it right because initially we struggled. When from 2005, when we started the ethanol blending and we wanted only 5% blending in 10 states and union territories, we couldn't succeed. Because I think the other requirements were not in place. There was a time initially where our stakeholders, who are the strongest supporters now, also had doubts. But today, when I walk into this Bharat Mandapam, by the way, I'm also greatly always fascinated because it was when I was Minister for Housing and Urban Affairs that this facility was built. It was built by the NBCC. So, no, it's very important because we need world-class facilities like Bharat Mandapam, Yashobhumi, and this facility that ONGC is building on 240 acres of land in Goa. No, what I'm coming back to is, what is it when I come here and I'm told you have what, 19 flex fuel cars on display? 19 new models. So, you can have all the blend you want in the world. You can have all the ethanol blending. But if the cars which can, or the vehicles which have to consume that blend are not available, then their blending program doesn't. It's like a chicken and egg story. Equally, sometimes we do things in anticipation. Thanks to the prodding of my senior colleague, Mr. Gadkari, we agreed that we would actually make E100 fuel, that is 100% ethanol, available in 400 dispensing points in different states. We've done that. Now, somebody told me, isn't it a waste of resources? I said, no. It'll encourage some people to come here and start plying their tractors on ethanol. It will also encourage Toyota Motors and Suzuki Motors and Hyundai and all the other manufacturers to maybe send us cars which can consume, maybe. But you don't make policy only because you have a requirement that day. I think the purpose of visionary policies, for which my boss, the Honorable Prime Minister, is now very well known, he makes a policy also to incentivize people to move in that way. One of my friends here on my right spoke about the green hydrogen. I would like you to familiarize yourself with a tender which we've issued. I don't remember the specification, but I'm told we got 7 excellent bids on quantities which will take us to 1 million metric tons per annum very easily. So there is movement on all fronts. Movement on vehicles which are using compressed biogas, compressed natural gas, ethanol. Ethanol is coming from different feeds. We are moving on the electric vehicles front. We are moving on fuel cell or green hydrogen path. And that is what I call the revolutionary change with which I had started saying many of us perhaps don't comprehend. Because life is, there is continuity which characterizes our existence, but there is change. When the change takes place faster than the continuity, then you begin to notice it. But I genuinely believe, thanks to a lot of people, different stakeholders, the change that we are going through just now is literally revolutionary, and we will get to see the change of that. It's very easy to talk about fossil fuel, but I think you come 2030, and some of our basic calculations will begin to change. Because by 2030, we'll have a very good idea of how much green hydrogen can come in. By 2030, our sustainable aviation fuel work will begin to take shape. And I think, again, countries like India and Brazil also, I look forward to collaborating with Japan in particular, because they have a gas-based economy and there's much that we can learn from there and exchange experiences. We stay committed to support the automobile industry in any issues that they face in adoption of flex fuel hybrid vehicles across the country. And I'm making this point on record, be it the corporate average fuel efficiency, CAFE norms, taxation policies, subsidies, as we look to make these vehicles more accessible and appealing to consumers. I also urge the automobile industry to introduce more flexi fuel in the Indian market, vehicles in the Indian market that shall enhance energy security and support environmental sustainability goals. The Global Biofuels Alliance, to which I referred to briefly, I think is set to witness now a quantum enhancement in its activities. I think we have all countries that have an interest on board. I think total number of countries is what, about 27 countries. All the international organizations are on board. The requirements of those who want to join the global biofuels ecosystem as producers have been identified. I think stakeholders who are in a position to supply technical assistance have been. So things are beginning to move very well. Now, this was launched in 2023. I think by capitalizing on this $500 billion opportunity in biofuels globally, this will also accelerate adoption, reduce greenhouse gas emissions, and promote the decarbonization of the automobile industry with cleaner and sustainable alternatives. The establishment of Center of Excellence under various verticals of the GBA will significantly enhance the development, acceptance, and implementation of internationally recognized standards, codes, sustainability principles, and regulations within the biofuels industry. By concentrating on critical areas such as technology transfer, innovation, and the sharing of best practices, these centers will encourage collaborative research and development initiatives to propel advancement. Why am I repeating this? Basically to say that the scale on which work is now being done in the area of biofuels literally needs to be made known to people outside. Unlike the fossil fuels where, it has been a rapid expansion, you need fossil fuels, certainly, till you are able to make the transition and to survive the present. But this one brings in a green sustainability dividend straight away. You don't have to wait for that. And therefore, I am confident that the future of India's mobility will encompass a blend not only of ethanol, electric vehicles, hydrogen, and other green energy alternatives. Thank you very much.